Right, okay. Max, welcome to my Neurodivergent Diary. This is my podcast all about being neurodivergent.
You know, being neat and tidy, that's more OCD, which is just a personality thing.
Yeah. That needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
That like phrase, the terminology.
Yeah. You just like things to be neat. It ain't got anything to do, like, if that wasn't neat, would you go into like an anxious spiral,
Exactly.
cry, have intrusive thoughts, and then feel like that you're a shitty human?
Yeah.
No. You'd just be like, oh, done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's... Obviously, there are loads of different forms of OCD, don't get me wrong. You know, the cleanliness stuff, you know, there are people who actually have OCD, which is they're washing their hands literally every 2 minutes.
They bleed.
Literally.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not taking it away from them whatsoever, but I am going to take it away from the people who say, I'm so OCD. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not, love.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
And, you know, I hear it pretty much, I would say, every other day. Someone say it. And I'm never going to pull everyone up. But my mates... or the people who know me, every time I hear it, I'll look at them and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And they know it. And you got to laugh about it. You got to laugh about it, because otherwise I'd be having to throw fisticuffs at every other person that said it. Do you know what I mean? But there's just no point.
Roll an eye, raise an eyebrow. Yeah, so it's true.
But
it's interesting because I think actually the whole neurodivergent spectrum get that. And there are more things that are, you know, more extreme, obviously, within that spectrum, right?
Yeah.
It frustrates me a lot because dyslexia is really debilitating.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this before on a podcast, and it's like no shade, but I've had friends literally say things happen, I don't know what, you know, and I've struggled or like said, oh shit, I fucked up, I'm sorry. I'm dyslexic, please, like, bear with me. And they've gone, you can't blame everything on dyslexia. And now we're talking about it a lot more, and people are starting to understand, but it generally used to get people where they're like, I think I'm a bit dyslexic, which, don't get me wrong, like maybe you are and you're undiagnosed, but like, let's talk about it. Let me tell you whether, you know, and they're like, oh, I'm just a bit shit spelling. And I'm like, okay, but like I go the wrong way on the tube because like I've stood there for 5 minutes and the word that I'm looking for is literally not popping out.
Mad.
Because black on white doesn't compute to me. Like I have to put an overlay on books, so you get like blue or yellow tends to be the color that people most resonate with. Green can sometimes work. And as soon as that's over black and white text, I can read it. My brain is just so different. Like
that's mad. I actually saw someone with like a purple piece of paper on top of a book and I didn't know what it was. So that makes sense to me now.
Sure,
mad.
I need to do more content around that.
You should, man. That's so interesting. And it's also something that like people probably don't know about. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty clued up when it comes to this shit, but I had no idea about that.
Yeah, because why would you? Do you know what I mean? Like it's so specific. But
it's pretty niche.
It's very fucking niche, but it's life-changing, to be honest with you. And I'm trying to advocate more, like, there are so many times where I get fucking car parking fines and shit like that, right? And I'm like, I have read everything. Or I used an app recently and I won this, but I fucked up in a time. But basically I use an app. I'd put my friend's car details in the day before, but I use this app all the time. So my car details are literally in there. They've been in there for years, right? Next day I'm with my mum, take her shopping. I've parked. And when it came up, it didn't like make it wasn't bold to me that it was still on my friend's like registration plate from the day before. It just was not fucking obvious. And I went to check the parking to be like, okay, we're going to be out for a bit longer. Let me renew it. Like, let me put an extra hour on. And it was my friend's car. I'd been paying for the parking. And I nearly had a breakdown. Honestly, like, and it's so stupid. But I'm sure you can relate for like different reasons. But I'm in the middle of like some shopping centre with my mum and I'm like trying to not, I feel so stupid.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not let it affect me. It's happened. I've probably got a parking ticket by now, but I'm like so angry at myself about it. I'm like, I'm going to do it now because we're going to be out for another hour. But I've fucked it, haven't I? So I emailed the app and I said, like, it is not clear. You do not, because so other things they check again or they make it really bold. And it's really small where like that bit is where you can check which car it is or whatever. They don't go, are you sure this is the car, you know? Bearing in mind I use it all the time and like I'd only put that car in the day before, I do think that's a flaw. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Emailed them and they actually let me off the ticket.
Fair play.
And that's the first.
Good on them.
I know, which is good. And they were like, do you know what, we're going to feed back this information, which I'm really glad about. But in London, this wasn't in London. In London, this happens to me all the time. They seem to come up with new road signs that fucking don't even have words on all the fucking time. And you're in traffic and you're like, well, I'm fucked now because I'm here.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting a 60 quid fine. And I generally have gone into spirals where I'm like, the world is not made for me. I cannot navigate the way that other normal people can. And it's interesting because there's new research being done at the moment about neurodivergent people. And how, because I was like, I definitely had depression, or like maybe being dyslexic and potentially other things led me to being depressed. I don't know. Or maybe I already had, because it is in my family history, like that other people have had mental health issues. Maybe I've got a predisposition to both of these things. But it's really interesting. They're now saying that some people go into neurodivergent burnout.
Interesting.
Which is similar to like depression.
Right.
And anxiety. So I'm like, do I have
neurodivergent burnout?
Yeah, so it's where like things are hard. So let's say like with dyslexia, like what I just described, I'm navigating so much harder, a bit like you in school where you're like, I am trying my hardest.
Yeah.
And you're telling me it's not good enough. It's because you're not teaching me in a way that works.
That's mad.
Yeah. And so because we're trying to navigate this like normal situation that normal people's brains can relate to, our brains don't relate to it.
That's so interesting. I've actually never heard that, but that kind of makes sense in a way. That's mad.
Isn't it? I think it's so fascinating. They're also now, they changed, like, I think legally, they're always doing research around neurodivergent illnesses, conditions, right? So, like, legally the definitions change a little bit every few years, every year. My mum has to re-qualify every year because she's a dyslexia assessor now, right?
Mad.
And that's really good because you know that they're learning constantly about our brains.
Yeah.
And they're now going to change the definition of dyslexia slightly, or they're admitting that it crosses. They've always said it crosses over. There's always crosses over dyspraxia, ADHD, all these things. Yeah. But they're kind of saying that you can be just diagnosed dyslexic, but it does have traits of the other things. Doesn't mean you're necessarily also ADHD. And I think that makes so much sense because I was just like, I tick all these other boxes, but like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And being told that you're intelligent, you're good at certain things, but like not being able to do other things, it makes you so frustrated.
Yeah, 100%.
Which kind of leads to burnout, but also depression. I think maybe it's just all linked, you know?
That's mad though. Like, it's funny how you mentioned earlier the whole kind of like the world almost not being tailored to you. Like, I kind of feel the same way, but mine is slightly different because it's partly by choice as well, because I don't feel like my rituals and things that I have to do because of my brain sometimes feel a bit, it is obviously my OCD talking, but it almost feels like it's kind of by choice as well because I'm choosing to do them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's not by choice,
No, but it feels that way, right?
Yeah,
and like, so I've got 2 tattoos here, which is a 3 and a 7, because I basically have to do everything in 3s and I have to do everything in 7. Right. So, like, if I do, like, I've probably touched my glass 7 times, voting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I can't do that once. I have to do it 3 times. And like, sometimes, leaving the house, I'll close the door, but for some reason, it felt like it closed a bit weird. So I'll have to unlock it again. And I'll close it again. But then because I've only done it twice, I have to do it again. I have so many rituals like that more often than not, it'll probably make me late to things.
Yeah.
And like, I've actually never, and I probably should do this more. If I'm late to something, I'll say, oh, sorry, the train was delayed. Yeah. Sorry, the tube was mad. Actually, I should just be like, I'm really sorry, my OCD was fucking awful and it wasn't letting me out of the house. Like, because it goes in peaks and troughs, right? But when my OCD is at its worst, I can literally be stuck in the bathroom for like 40 minutes and I can't get out because my brain is like, didn't do that right. And I hate doing things in 4s. So it's like, if I do the thing 3 times and it still doesn't feel right, I have then... Obviously, that's the 4th time, so I can't do that. But then because I've only done the round of 3s once and twice, I have to do... So basically, I end up doing the same thing 9 times. Wait, is that good maths? See, it's my maths all over again. I'm so bad at maths, man. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah. In 3s, 9 times.
And that's the thing, is like, I've never done that. And I think this conversation actually made me think I should actually do that more. Is just
Definitely.
when I am late because of my OCD, actually just be like, no, it's because of my OCD, not because of the tube or the train, or sorry someone wasn't letting me on the train, or something stupid excuse. Do you know what I mean?
No, I feel that.
Yeah,
I think it's really empowering to do that. I still think it's hard because I don't know, like, let's briefly, because how long have we been talking? I don't even know.
Yeah,
probably quite a long time.
How long we got?
We're still recording, so it's all good. I don't know, maybe another 10 minutes, let's say.
Cool.
Let's bring it to like social aspects and like friendships and dating, because I don't want them to hear this. They're gonna hear this. I went on a date recently.
Cool.
And this is no shade because I get where they were coming from, but like he went straight in with the deep conversations, and he was like, I don't like small talk, which I like.
Yeah, I'm about that. Yeah. I hate small talk so much.
Yeah, same. Like, I think there's elements of it that can be fun.
Yeah.
And I also think that I'm not here for trauma dumping. So there's a fine line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, like...
You don't want to instantly start crying like, my mum and my dad. Like, you don't want to go too deep. Do you know what I mean? The first date vibes, no way.
Exactly. This is always interesting. Like, okay, so this is a thing that is really relatable to what you just said. I'm suffering with long COVID right now, which is a whole new thing. So on top of everything fucking else.
Fuck.
It's shit. It's fucking shit. I won't lie. It's not...
That is long. No pun intended.
It's fucking long, mate. I haven't been able to smell properly since November 21.
Really?
Yeah, it's coming back now. Like,
shit.
But it's fucking shit. And my energy on the floor, in comparison to other people with long COVID, I'm like 50%. There are people that like can't do normal shit. Do you know what I mean?
That's mad.
It is mad. I'm a fit and active, or like was very, very fit and active person. And I'm still fit. I'm still trying to be active, but 50% of what I was, but also in comparison to people that also have it, I'm nowhere near as bad. But it still affects me, and my energy is just a lot like lower than it used to be. And obviously, if you're mentally interacting on quite a deep level with someone, that can be draining too. Do you get what I mean?
Get well tired.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was in a good way, but I was like already kind of drained. So I was like, wow, this is good, but it's a lot. Anyway, one of the things we talked about was like, I guess like past experiences with dating, just in terms, I don't know, like he was deep, and he was like, I like deep conversations, and he asked me some interesting conversations, but then he also said like some mutual friend came up, and like he was like, oh, I went on a date with this girl once, and like she's cool, but she's got a lot of like trauma and like a lot of like mental health stuff, right? Yeah.
Red flag, yeah.
But like, what do you see in the red flag? Because as in he saw, he didn't, I don't think he said like, I saw that as a red flag, but he was like, he's actively in therapy, right? So like, I'm all for that. So he was kind of like, I'm dealing with my shit, but it felt like she's not. So she's like bringing that, which I get.
I get
I've
that.
had that.
100%.
But I also felt a bit like shit. It's a bit judgmental. Do you get what I mean?
I think it's like, it's like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Like I probably jump the gun there and be like, nah, fuck, that's a red flag. Because
as in her having loads of trauma.
No, as in him.
Yes.
Him saying that as a red flag.
That's what
I probably jump the gun there, because actually when I do stop to think about it for a second, it's that thing of like, yeah, cool. You like we said earlier, mental health can be really selfish. Yeah. So, you do have to acknowledge that you're taking on a thing, and it's there are problems that if you're purposely dating for like something long term, then you're gonna come up against these things. Yeah. And I've been very, very lucky with my girlfriend now, who I love her. I want to marry this girl. I know I will. But it's that thing of like, she's amazing with my OCD. Right. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Because she doesn't allow me to spiral, in a sense of like, I'll be like, does this rash look funny? And she'll go, no. Whereas before it'd be like, oh, maybe. She's very just cutting, and that's kind of what I need. Okay. But she's also incredibly supportive. So when my OCD is really bad, she'll sit me down and go, what's causing... Are there any problems in the minute? Anything going on in your head? What's up? And like, my rituals, my tics and stuff can be quite visible. Yeah. So it's pretty obvious when my OCD is bad, to people who know me very well. If you don't know me, you're probably just like, that was weird.
Right,
But,
yeah,
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
But if you know me, you know it's because my OCD is fed up. But I think with dating, it's like, I think you've also got to be pretty open when you are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
You've got to be pretty open of just actually just being like, look, like, I've got this stuff.
Yeah.
If you can't take that on, I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%, because it's a fucking challenge for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's part of me, and I can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of said that to my missus now, was the thing of like, look, like, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be putting you through some rough stuff.
Yeah.
But that is just my head. And it doesn't affect how much I love you, doesn't affect how much I care for you, it doesn't affect, how I see you, how I see our relationship. But if I come home and I'm in a really shitty mood, and because my OCD's been treating me like shit all day, it's no reflection on us. It's no reflection on you. And it's almost, it's like, I'm sorry. Because it's like, it's hard to fucking live with.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I live it every day in my brain, but also it's like secondhand smoke. You're taking it on. How did you kind of like? How did you find when that guy said like she's got a lot of trauma and a lot of baggage and stuff like that? Like how did you react to that?
Yeah, it was interesting because I don't know this person that well. It's just someone like I know of, right? So that's how the conversation came up. I was like, oh, how was that? At first, I kind of judged him.
Which, as you would, I did.
Yeah,
just now.
exactly.
I was like, nah, fuck him.
Yeah, exactly.
Mad.
No, totally. And then it also resonated. So like, I've been around a lot of mental health stuff, which is why I think like I was saying when I was even super young, like I got it.
Yeah.
I just didn't know, I wasn't fully educated on it. And then over the years, I've had to grow up pretty quick, right? And I've been around people with all kinds of mental health conditions, and I've helped a lot of people, and in doing so helped myself as well. And I've had relationships. Every boyfriend I've had has had issues, whether they knew it or not.
Right.
And my first serious like long-term relationship when I was like at uni, I didn't really understand the words like anxiety. Anxiety was a word, but I didn't realize it was a condition. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And I started to realize that all of his family were like basically on medication for like being anxious, and I started to learn what that meant. And
Interesting.
It wasn't just like I'm anxious, you just throw it out the window. It was like, no, this is like a medical condition. And I don't think he really understood, but with our own personal issues in the relationship, it was like, okay, I get that this is a problem for you. Do you know what I mean? So I've dealt with it in a lot of relationships, and my last serious relationship, like it's weird now because you get into like long dating situations, you know what I mean? Which are just, to be honest, almost as serious, but my last boyfriend, shall we say.
Yeah.
Very early on, I learned he had some serious trauma. And I was very, glad that he was open with me about it and stuff. And I'm a very understanding person. When I first moved back to London, I lived with my two aunties who are gay, like as in one of them's my mum's sister. And both therapists. So like the best, like the coolest fucking place, two, like they're also quite like big activists. Like they've got arrested for shit. They're just fucking cool.
Sick.
Unfortunately, one of them is no longer here, but learn a lot from both of them.
Yeah.
And literally lived with therapists. So, fucking cool. So yeah, I don't know. There were a lot of red flags with him. It's basically the best way to put it. And I wasn't in the best. I'd actually just lost my auntie, or was going through the process of losing her. I was in a bad place, and I can handle and have. I thought I had good boundaries, but that relationship taught me I needed much better boundaries, because I let him get away with a lot of shit ways of treating me, because I didn't think he was treating me bad on purpose. It was because he had trauma that he wasn't dealing with. Like he knew it, but he also wasn't actively in therapy.
Right.
So, answer to your question is that like when that guy said that to me, I was like, I can get it, like, and understand, but also kind of judging you, because like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
I think it led into like other conversations where he said, I'm actively in therapy myself. So I think I basically said, listen, if someone's got a lot of trauma, a lot of shit, as long as they're handling it and they're actively handling it, I get it. And I suppose if you thought she wasn't, then I'm not going to judge you on that.
Yeah, I think also, to be fair to him as well, like saying to you on like a first date that he's in therapy.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
I'll always tip my hat to someone who is able to talk about that pretty openly, because
Same.
I wasn't. before. Do you know what I mean? And I think there are a lot of people who still aren't, unfortunately. And that's why suicide rates in men are still going up.
Yeah.
They still are. And like, you know, they've gone up since COVID. It's not that, you know, people think, oh, you know, men are talking about it now, it's great, suicide's there, it barely happens anymore. No, they're going up.
It's not true.
Because it's a fucking shit situation. But the fact that he can just be like, I'm in therapy, I'm like, cool. That's someone who clearly is actually open to acknowledging that someone has problems.
Yeah.
But not demonizing them for it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's hard to live with, which I think is completely fucking understandable.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, I'm not easy to live with. And I know that. I absolutely know that. Whether you're family or a friend or partner, I'm not easy to live with because I'm like that. But part of who I am.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? I think one thing that I found is, as well, people... like, it's a red flag for me if a guy can't be like open about talking about mental health on a date, right? In a dating scenario. If they're instantly shutting down, I'm like, oh God, this is not going to work out.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say is that I've dated quite a few guys now that quite early on have opened up to me that they have been to therapy or even are in therapy. But what I learn is, like, I'm very educated in therapy. My therapist told me I should be a therapist.
Mad.
So, like, which is, you know, maybe a future career, but it's a very different career. And I've had relationships, dating, situationships, whatever, where I think we're on the same page. Like, I'm like, there's so many green flags, you know, they're like actively working on their mental health. But then they start to see it as I'm further along the journey and they like it and they hate it because I'm not trying to therapize you, you know, but if I'm seeing shit and I'm with you all the time and it's affecting me, like,
I'll say it.
I've got to bring it up and in a polite way and in a sensitive way, but we're going to have a conversation. And what I tend to find is they've not reached that point in therapy.
Right.
And so when I'm bringing it up, they don't want to they're like, fuck you for judging me. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. Or I ask questions, even like, I don't know, how do you like to be treated? Have you thought about what your love language is? You know, these things that I do think are talked about a lot more, but they're still quite feminine or looked at as, but they're not feminine. Yeah. But men still look at it and I'm met with, oh, I've never thought about that before. Yeah. And it's nice because it starts a conversation with them thinking about it. But sometimes it's like, because they've never thought about it, they're not treating, like, we're not treating each other how we want to be treated. Yeah. You get what I mean? Yeah. And so for me, I'm not finding that an enticing situation because I don't feel 100% seen either. Right. Because I'm like, I've thought about that. Like, you know, there's your attachment style. Do you know all about that? Yeah. And I've only learned about that over the past couple of years, and I've talked about it in therapy and like educated myself so thoroughly because I knew I had my own issues. Like, it's not just the other person in the situation. And I have got a weird brain. It's a lot to take on board, and I'm very good, almost to my own detriment in the past, of like, what are my problems as opposed to the other person's problems. So I really do try to work on myself. But I think so many people don't like go into relationship, like they're working on their own mental health, shall we say, like they've acknowledged that they have issues, but they haven't acknowledged their relationships and how it affects their relationships. Yeah. And that, like, if you, like, you're so lucky to have found a girlfriend that, like, A, is understanding and supportive, because it goes to show that she's willing to, she knows she likes you. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. But she's willing to step out of the norm of 100%. A situation. Whereas I'm saying to somebody, do you know what? Maybe you don't know what you like yet, but I quite like this. And they're like, oh, you're telling me what to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, it's just, or I had to say to someone the other day, and this is, I would treat dating and friendships similar. Like, I fucking hate when I can notice a guy is going out of his way to, like, treat me like a girl he's dating, you know, on purpose, not replying to me, like trying to quit. Bruv, I'm not playing like games. That. Yeah, like, it's not going to happen. I will treat you like I treat my friends. Like, if I very rarely like people in general, like whether it's dating or friendships, like I really have to click with someone and know that we're on a level, do you know what I mean? And to be bothered to give them my time of day. Yeah. Like, I'm like that these days. So if I find out you like similar shit to me, I'm like, I'm on it. I'm like, oh my God, this exhibition is happening, or let's do this. Let's do that. Yeah. And if they're not being as reactive, shall we say, because they're playing it cool. I'm like, bruv, I'm off that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm asking my friends, you know, like my mate Danny was in here earlier. It's like, Danny, do you want to go to the exhibition? Do you know what I mean? I will ask my mates to do the same things I ask dating like scenarios to do, because I spent ages working on myself and dating myself. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I think also like you become really good friends with your partner.
You should do.
So like you're going to be doing stuff that you would do with your mates. Yeah. So if there's no like similar interests and stuff like that, or there's problems there, then like it's a hard road to come from. Like obviously it can work, but it's a hard place to get to.
Yeah. And I think, tell me if you're the same or not, but like the way I tell my friends how I feel is the same way I tell a person I'm dating, right? Because, for example, if my friend's been long to get back to me, either I'm just like, cool, move on, I've made the plans with someone else. And when they come back to me, I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, it took a week. I've done that now. And then they learn, oh, I need to treat her, you know, or like, oh, I just need to tell her, wait, I'm going to come back to you on that, or I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I need someone to tell me, which I think is part of my neurodivergence. It's like, I don't care if I don't hear from you for a month, but if we've got plans in a month, you can fuck off for a month. I know I'm seeing you in a month's time.
I get that.
Do you get what I mean?
So I'm like, I would say I'm pretty much the opposite of you, where like, I you know, I could not talk to one of my mates for like 6 months, and I know only because I openly say this to many people, is I don't have many mates. I've got a very kind of like close-knit, tight friendships. Yeah. And anything outside of that is like, like we'll go for a beer and like stuff. Yeah. But it's never like my mates who I want around me, the mates that I know if I rang at 3 a.m, I've got a problem, they'll sort me out. Yeah. Just like I would them. So like for me, it's I know that I can kind of, and unfortunately I do bring this into relationships, where I literally had this conversation with my missus the other day, where she was like, I want you to plan stuff. Like, let's plan things. And for me, planning makes me fucking anxious. So anxious. Like, if someone says to me, let's do something next Wednesday. Like, but I don't know what I'm doing next Wednesday.
See, this was me.
That scares the shit out of me.
A lot of people are like that, and most of my friends are like that, right? And this was me. Okay. And what I realized was my disorganized anxiety, like my disorganization was causing me anxiety. Right. So within it was weird because it's separate to like being neurodivergent in terms of like how I like helped myself, shall we say. It was just through mental health support. It was through therapy. It was through well-being stuff, where I realized that I would basically one of my best mates called me out on it. She's been my best mate since I was 4, and she doesn't live in London. So, like, seeing her is not easy, right? And I think it was, like, her birthday or something, a big occasion. And she was like, right, I'm going to do this. Can you come? And it was, like, 2 months away. And I'm a freelancer. Yeah. And I was...
Yeah, same. You don't know what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, and I was like, can I let you know nearer the time? And basically, I've done that for years. And she said, Kitty, if you don't have anything on that day, put this in. And then nearer to the time, you can cancel on me. And I was like, fuck, is that all right? Do you know what I mean? And I was like, that's so fucking true. She's like, you put the things in that come up. Yeah. And then you either work around them, or if you can't, you move it. Yeah. And I promise you, I know it sounds mad, but it changed my life.
That's actually mad. I feel like that's my problem as well, is I'll say maybe to like 6 people or 6 things, 6 work things or whatever. Yeah. And then I'll get to that day and I'll be like, oh my God, I've actually had to say no to all of them because I have, and then I end up doing nothing.
Because you're anxious
because I'm anxious about it.
Exactly.
And then, but actually, if I was just like, said yes to one of them and then worked around the others, I mean, I get you, man, that totally makes sense. Please try it. I will.
Please try it, because I think this is my issue, but like, this is my solution that has genuinely changed my life. And it's my problem with a lot of my friends, right? Some of my friends are just neurotypical and like that, fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, they will push me for an answer. Yeah. My other friends, majority of my friends are like ADHD or whatever. And I think same with dating, and we end up like rubbing each other because I've got to this point where I know that managing my anxiety is not giving myself too many plans, because then I'm fucking like, I will have a panic attack, like literally. And I was suffering very, very heavily with panic attacks like a year ago. So it's also managing my expectations. So like I will only make a few plans in a week and the rest of it has to like just fall around it. But if it's like, okay, a dating thing or a best friend or a serious work commitment, I'm going to be like, okay, yep, that's happening that day, right? And then other things, if they're coming up, I can see how I feel as they come up. But it gets frustrating. Like I told someone recently, I'm like, listen, you know, we're supposed to see each other on one day and then like we changed it last minute. That's fine. Like I'm chill. I'm like, no worries, that's fine. You know, when do you want? And then they're like, oh, we can do it on this day or like we'll do it next week instead. And I was like, yeah, calm. What days are good for you? Cool. And then it was like left up in the air. And I messaged them and I like, this is something that I used to find scary as well, because I realized that other people also being like that was causing me a lot of anxiety. And it's not about like it's not worth, it's just literally like, but I need to plan my shit. And if you are not committing to something with me, I could have committed to something else. Even if it's staying at home, I just need to know. And that manages my anxiety, because if I'm unsure what I'm doing when I wake up, I don't know how to dress. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to eat. I need to check everything beforehand. Like, I need to be prepared for life, right? And I never used to be. And that's why I was just walking around, depressed, anxious, fucking mess. Late to everything, like, hadn't eaten, like, because I was just going with the flow.
See, I'm like a meticulous planner. But when it's plans in the future, that's when it freaks me out. So like my days, like right now, my calendar is down to like 20 minute to 30 minute to an hour increments. That's just how, because if I don't do that, I get really anxious. And like I'm not being funny. Like I've got a lot of shit on my plate at the minute. And you know, if I don't, you know, meticulously plan stuff, things slip. And unfortunately that happens, you know, when you're busy, it happens. But you can prevent it so much easier just by actually planning a calendar. And I learned that from one of my old bosses who basically just installed these really, really good habits in me. Danny Lowney, shout out, mate. What a legend. But yeah, like it's that thing where, you know, if I have everything planned, I'm cool. But if you ask me for something in a week, oh my God, I just freak. Like, but I'm gonna do what you said, man, because that's because I think also like it makes sense to me, and like more often than not I just need someone to be like, try this, and I'll be like, cool, I'll do it, and then it will work. But I think I just get in my head about it a bit, I think.
I think the perfect balance, and I say this like I think for my brain, and I potentially wonder if for most neurodivergent brains, is a set of planned things like throughout the week, throughout the next few months, right? And a lot of non-planned stuff. So if you want to just go and do something and be spontaneous, you can just go and do it, and you've got no one holding you. So I do a lot of things on my own as well. Like I'll go to an exhibition, fuck it, I'm going to go on my own because it's going to I've already got 3 plans this week. I don't want to plan in another thing. It's going to stress me the fuck out. So what I found is the perfect, like even like I just didn't go on holidays or go to festivals for fucking ages unless it was happening because of work. Because someone else was booking it in for me. And I'm like, sick. But
I'm going there, cool. I don't need to worry about it now.
Exactly. And now I'm trying to be like, especially this year, I'm like, right, booking in this holiday. I'm like almost obsessive with it. I don't want to have too many plans because I will burn out. And I did that last year. But like just a few things I know are going to happen in the future. It also helps my depression, because anxiety and depression is so different and people don't seem to really understand it, right? Like depression for me is waking up and being like, what is my purpose? Why am I on this earth? What am I doing?
What's the point?
What's the fucking point? Yeah. So if there's nothing to look forward to, I'm way deeper in depression mode. And that's why I've learned plans help, because I can look forward to it. So then that brings me back to dating, right? Where it's not because I'm not trying to be like, you know, you're not treating me right. It's really hard to convey to people when I'm dating with them, but I'm like, oh, look, we've got this maybe plan next week. Just checking, like, is that day definitely good? Or did we need to book where we're going? Like, let's say it's an exhibition or a restaurant. Just because I'm like, I've got that to look forward to, and like, not in a harsh way. It's like, I like that person, I want to spend time with them, obviously, but it's not even about you. It's about like, it could be my friend or a date, but I know I've got that thing to look forward to. And that is going to be like, okay, tick box. You don't have to kill yourself. Like, let's be honest, like, you don't have to kill yourself.
Yeah.
I've had those feelings too, and I've been incredibly depressed. Like, I think the majority of my life, up until like 6 years ago when I made that YouTube thing I was telling you about, I just lived in a cloud, of mostly depression, which then life situations brought on anxiety. Like, I think I was just depressed my whole life.
Yeah.
And I've really learned how to control that. And try, like, it's not sexy. I get it when someone's being like, can we just confirm this plan? And someone else is being like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like, let's go with the flow. Yeah. I get it. But, like, do you want to date me or not? Like, do you know what I mean? I
think that's kind of the thing that I kind of, when I was last single, the mentality I had was, if you can't kind of match, I guess, kind of what I'm looking for and what you're looking for, then there's no point.
Yeah.
Like, I was dating with purpose. And, you know, it's that thing of, I know it sounds stupid. I'm 26 now. Like, I know I'm not old, but, you know, I'm not the youngest. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's that thing of, you know, I didn't just want to kind of screw around. I was like, I got to the point where I was single, and I was like, nah, do you know what? Like, I'm done with the dating life. I was kind of done with to be honest, shagging about. I was just done with it, and I was like, I just want to find a person that when I say something, they kind of match that energy, and we kind of are on the same level. Whereas if they weren't, I kind of just got to a point where I was like, in my head, I was like, cool, I can't be asked for this now, because there's no point of it. But yeah, it's dating life is mental when you know that version. I'll tell you that.
May I fucking I think people see, like, sometimes don't quite get it.
Yeah.
Like, what you're trying to say, and you're like, no, I'm not being some like regimented bitch. It's not about like, are you a gentleman enough? It's just more like, this is obviously cool, we're having fun, but like, this is just how I am.
Yeah.
And I say that to my friends as well. But you're right, don't get me wrong, there are friends where, like, one of my mates is like severe ADHD, okay? And like, she doesn't really have like medication for it. I think she's been looking into it. I think she is in the path of trying to get that. She kind of has self-medicated, shall we say, for many years. And she goes through a lot of things, and she's a little bit younger than me, and like, you know, we get on so fucking well, but there are times where she's like off the rails, knows that she's being completely like she needs help kind of thing, and like dealing with it in her own ways, and she knows I'm there, so I will just get a call of her crying, you know, and she's like, she knows that I'm the sane person that can like talk her like down from things, but I might not see her for months. Yeah. And then when her life's back in order, like, she's moved, it will always be like, she's moving house, she's got this going and that, you know, like a million things. And I'm like, it's cool, you do you, bro. And then it's like, but when I see you, it's calm. As long as there are things, and like, we've got an established friendship. But I think when it's new, I'm like, you kind of need to establish to get to that point.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
I think it's also like whether it's friendships or dating, like even family. Like, one of my first like mental health posts that kind of did well was I did this thing where it's like a carousel. It's just like it was just like a written thing, and I just wrote, what was it? It was like 3 things that are more important. That was it. 3 things that are more important than your mental health. And you swiped, number 1, nothing, in brackets, not even your family.
I think I remember this,
Second,
actually.
Nothing, not even your job. Second, nothing, not even your friends. I completely still believe that.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's true.
Nothing is more important than, and this is why I agree with the whole, like, be selfish.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if your job is annoying you, obviously there are financial aspects to things that might be more complicated. You can't just leave a job. I completely get that.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation. But, you know, whether it's a friendship, if they're not good for your mental health, get rid of them.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, it hurt, or your relationship. If it's not good for your mental health, even if you got kids, just you got to do what's good for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and especially with like friends, family, it's the thing that happens all the time. You know, it's I really don't get along with my sister. She makes me so upset all the time. But I have to see it this. No, you don't.
Yeah.
It's hard because obviously there's stigma around it. But I personally believe I unintentionally cut a lot of people off in my life. Purely that's just because how I am. Like if they're not there around me, I struggle to chat with them. That's just how my brain works. But anyone from France, I talk to maybe 1 person, 2 people who are like my best mates from France, but that's it. Whereas like, you know, I think people get in this mindset where it's like, oh no, but I can't get rid of it, like kick them out of my life.
Yeah.
So, but you can if they're bad for you.
Do you know what I really advocate for is, I think like, let's say whether it's family or relationships, whatever. Let's say you're in a relationship with somebody, you've got kids, like you just said, you know, obviously go to therapy, obviously try. Obviously like do the thing, because there is also this thing of, and I think cancel culture, like obviously we talk about that in terms of brands and celebrities, but I think that's such a like widespread thing now where people are just like, cut them out, cancel, right? I think some people do that and don't deal with themselves. So I think the difference is here, like you actively working on your mental health, actively going to therapy, all these things. So what you're doing is you're noticing red flags and you're probably seeing it quite a few times, maybe bringing it up, trying to like, you know, work around it, shall we say. And then you get to a point where you're like, this isn't good for me anymore, right? And that's the process it should be.
Yeah, and that's, you know, obviously I said that thing of whole like, you know, get rid, whatever.
Yeah.
But that is essentially my process.
Yeah.
Is, you know, if I was actually not doing anything to help myself and I was noticing red flags in people that weren't even there, all that stuff, but getting rid of loads of friends, ended up being alone, who's that going to help?
Yeah,
it's not going to help anyone.
Yeah.
If anything, it's going to make everything worse.
Yeah.
But if you're at a point where you're feeling good, you're feeling happy, you're feeling healthy, you'll get not even to feeling happy, but just getting on the track. You know, you're on an incline, right?
Yeah.
But then you notice that people around you actually, you know, turning your incline into a bit of a decline.
Yes.
They're the people you need to, you know, question. Not click out your life, but you need to question whether they should be around or not.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and then get them out of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like that with people who, you know, I'm not a big drinker anymore. I don't take drugs at all.
Yeah.
It's just not I mean, I can't even drink a coffee without having a fucking panic attack.
Yeah,
so let alone anything that's an upper, no way I couldn't.
Yeah.
But, you know, my mates now who used to do a lot of drugs or who still drink a lot, there's less things to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Because what we used to talk about was, oh mate, that time when we were fucked up. Like, there's less things to talk about. So those friendships phase out anyway because
true.
You're just into different things.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be on the decline because drugs make me sad.
Yeah.
Alcohol makes me sad.
100%.
Not sleeping makes me sad.
Yeah.
Like, if I do any of those things, it's a decline.
Yeah.
So I just got to make sure that I'm being healthy, exercising, making sure that my brain's all good, doing fun things like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Meeting fun people like you. No, but legit, man, like,
it's true.
It's important for my brain anyway. This is what stimulates me.
Same. I think, in all honesty, most people that are on an incline, not a decline, think the same way. You know, like, if you're working on your mental health, you start to realize your anxiety is triggered by things. And obviously there are deeper reasons than caffeine, but caffeine triggers it. And if you've ever had a panic attack, you realize that those things are the things that make it worse. Yeah. I've been on that journey for years, like the past 10 years since I moved to London, right? And more seriously in the past, like 3 years, like pandemic to now kind of thing, right? And it is interesting because I stopped drinking like for 2 years, over 10 years ago. So like just when I moved to London, I had already not been drinking for like...
You were a wee squire.
Like literally.
A wee squire moved to the big smoke.
And I didn't drink for 2 years and people like, I don't know, they saw it as such a weird thing, but then I had a lot of friends that were straight edge, you know, like what that is, And so because I was kind of in a scene where I was like 50-50, it was okay. And then I started to not like drink again, like heavily, but as in like I can just have a drink. I'm very lucky in that respect. That like if I have one, I can just have one. But yeah, people start to see you as like, oh, you know, she's boring. But I can go out. When I didn't drink for those 2 years, I made myself go out to like parties, raves. I was dancing on tables sober.
Yeah.
And that, do you know what that does for your mental health? Such a big positive because you're like, well, actually, they're fucked. So they don't remember me standing here on this table dancing.
Yeah, they don't care.
So who gives a fuck? And even if other people are sober, you're all in it together. You're all having fun. People drink so they're not judged. And then that's one thing that I found is like people feel so judged when you don't want to do drugs, when you don't want to drink alcohol because you're sober. And I'm like, mate, if I'm here, I don't give a fuck. You do you. But that's just not for me.
Yeah, 100%.
It's so hard.
So like my missus doesn't drink, which is really helpful for me because like I can find it quite easy to get into like a binge. So like I've never had a problem with any type of substance at all, to be honest. The only thing I've ever, like, no, it's not against that. I've never had, I've honestly...
A serious problem.
Yeah, honestly, I've never had a problem with any substance. Like, never been an issue.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that it could easily turn into a weekend.
Yeah.
And then it's 2 weekends in a month. Then it's the 3 weekends. Then it's a weekend and maybe an occasional Thursday or a Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And, you know, when I first moved to London, obviously I didn't know anyone. So I was just like, the more you go out, the more you're going to meet people, the more you're going to be completely honest, meet girls, the more you're going to, you know, all of these things. And, you know, it got to a point where I was like, oh, this is actually really boring.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually so boring. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And I did tell myself, I was like, I reckon I'll do this till I'm about 25. And then I'll stop. And like, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the occasional drink, of course. Like it's great. But having, you know, a partner that doesn't drink means that actually when we do go out, we don't have to have a bottle of wine. We don't have to get pissed when we go on a date together.
Yeah.
We don't have to get pissed to tell each other how we feel. It's, you know, very open communicators. And, you know, I think that's also a big thing when it comes to men as well. A lot of reasons men drink is because they can't tell like their mates they love them when they're sober.
Yeah.
That obviously I do like interviews on the street, right?
Yeah.
And there was one guy, I never posted this video, and I felt like I didn't post it kind of out of respect for him because I could sense there was some trauma there almost. Right. But I basically was like, do you tell your guy friends you love them? And he was like, oh, maybe when we've had a few.
Right.
And I was like, why? And then it was almost like, so I don't know, it's just easier. And I basically just wanted to stop filming because I was like, I don't want to make a video out of this. Yeah. Because I can sense that there's a part of you that knows that you drink to tell your mates things. Yeah, yeah. And I just felt this like empathy towards him because I was like, fuck, man. Like if you could chat to your mates without having a drink, you would realise how important just chatting to your boys is.
Do you know why that is so important for like everybody, for men to do that? Because if men don't do that with each other when they're sober, then they're not able to do that with anybody else. Yeah. They're doing what you said you did when you were a kid and keeping it all in your head. Yeah. And do you know how hard it is to date men like that? Well, you know what I mean? Because majority of men are like, remember I said before, it's like a green flag when someone's okay to talk about mental health and like that say they've been to therapy on like a first or second date, right? One guy I dated, you know, in our first like date, it was very casual. We'd met in real life, so like, oh, should we go hang out? You know, it wasn't a serious date. And we just chatted and we got on really well, and we both openly talked, not like in a deep way about mental health, but like, oh, I've been to therapy. Oh, I've been to therapy. And I was like, sick. And because my ex-boyfriend I hadn't long broken up with needed therapy, and I basically had to walk away, which was fucking hard because he wasn't going to get therapy. I was like, oh my God, you're amazing. You've been to therapy. Do you know what I mean? I was just like blown away by it. But what I realized further down the line was he'd gone to a few sessions or like he'd done some therapy and he clearly needed ongoing therapy, you know, like a lot more. And he was like, well, I've done therapy. Yeah. And one of my best mates did this as well. Someone died. And we were like, okay, mate, you need to talk to someone about this. This is grim. Like, this is not okay. He deserved to talk to someone, and her then business place offered it. She went to one session, was like, I'm good. And I was like, you're not good. No. Do you know what I mean? So I think also that thing of this guy that I'm talking about, we were in each other's lives quite a long time. And like, as it went on, I remember us having a conversation about communication. He was like, I don't know if always having good communication is a good thing. And I was like, what?
This doesn't even make sense.
Right? And he goes, because imagine I was like so open with my feelings and emotions all the time, I'd probably still be with my ex-girlfriend. And I went, why? What? Because you could have told her how you felt and then maybe you'd have fixed it. And he went, yeah. And I was like, but the reason you broke up with your ex-girlfriend is because she obviously was she had her own issues, right? And she was very codependent. Right. And that suffocated you because you never gave her enough, even though you literally didn't have any time to yourself. Like I've heard, you know, because like it started off quite casual. It's like I've heard the whole situation, and I'm very good at hearing the woman's side and the man's conversation as well. And I was like, she sounds like she was very codependent. So even though you did end up telling her how you felt and then you broke it off with her, like, you telling her that's how you feel, if she wasn't dealing with a shit, wouldn't have made it any better, because sure, she can go, okay, I'm smothering you, let me try and get some help for this. But at the end of the day, you tried to have these conversations with her, like, and it didn't work out. So I don't agree with you, because if you'd have started having that conversation a year before you had the conversation, you'd have still, you had the conversation, it was just a year later. It wasn't the right person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I started to realize there were things about him, like things that he enjoyed or ways he wanted to dress that, like, he wouldn't do around certain people. His boy mate, like his like
around the boys,
around the boys. It's literally that exact sentence, and it made me so sad, because I was like, I'm so glad that I'm a person you can open up to and you can be honest about these things, or you can maybe dress a little bit different when we're together or whatever. Yeah. But how shit is that you can't do that with your boys because they're gonna judge you?
I think and like it's mad, because I actually feel really blessed with the friends that I've got. Like when I say my boys, like. Yeah, I will tell all of them, like, not just love you, mate, it's I love you.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
And we'll hug. I'll have a cuddle with them. I've spooned all of them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's, I've kissed most of them. I've not even, like, you know, when we're drunk, just like pure joy. It's I fucking love you, mate. Yeah. And have a smooch. Like, that's how we are, because it's really important to me, for one, because, you know, without a lot of them, especially, like, shout out my mate Sammy, who's and Kieran and Elliot, all of them. They've all been there for me, but without them, I wouldn't be here. 100%. Without them, I would be dead. 100%.
Makes me just I want you to carry on, but I just want to say it makes me really sad. It makes me really happy for you hearing that, but it makes me really sad, because when I look back at other guys in my life, I know I've been that person for them. Yeah. None of their boy mates. Yeah. And because of that, like, say it's in a romantic situation, like, if it doesn't work out, who else is there for them to do that? Yeah. And those same guys are the same guys that had to get drunk to tell me how they felt about me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why it doesn't work out with me, because I'm like, do you know what, if you can't be honest about your emotions, 100%. It isn't healthy.
And that's kind of what I was getting to, is it's so important to be honest with your mates, because, you know, I went from essentially being in my own head, wanting to kill myself, to now coming onto podcasts and chatting to you about how I wanted to do that and how I've had these thoughts. Whereas literally 5 years ago, I felt the ultimate shame towards how I felt. Without the steps of chatting to my family or chatting to my therapist or chatting to my mates, my boys, I wouldn't be where I am right now. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be doing this. I definitely wouldn't be creating content online about it. I definitely wouldn't be as happy as I am. Yeah. I wouldn't be in the positions that I'm putting myself to, because I would have been less open. Yeah. I still would have felt shame. I still would have felt scared to say how I feel. Like, you know, there are some boys out there who, you know, they're best mates for their entire lives, but they don't hug.
Yeah.
What the fuck's that about?
I know.
Like, they don't say I love you. What? Like I said earlier, you know, if people are in my life, I accidentally, and I do say accidentally because I don't intentionally mean to do it, but I cut people out. Yeah. Not out of any spite or anything. It's purely just how my brain just goes. Boop, boop, boop.
I sent someone a video because I was just, like, shocked by it, and it wasn't funny like I find this funny. It was like, what the fuck? It's a drunk girl holding a fish out of a fish tank. Right. And, like, so it's like, and I was like, what the fuck is she doing? And I was basically like, oh, this is low-key, like, animal abuse. But I was kind of joking, but also being like, this is fucking weird. Yeah. And she replied to me like, oh my fucking God, why would you send me, like, animal abuse? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Never do this again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know TikTok. And they were someone that was very, like, on TikTok. And I was like, do I report this? Like, what do I do? How does TikTok work? I generally didn't understand TikTok at the time. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I'm sorry. Like, I'll report it. Now you've told me how I can do that, and done. I will never say, like, I've never done this before. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never sent you a video that's like this. And she just kept going. She's like, this is a boundary. You always tell me about boundaries. This is a boundary. And I was like, no, I get it. I got it the first time. And it's basically, the example I'm trying to explain is that there are people who see a buzzword or have been told something because they're not, you know, being a great human. And then they're like, okay, but I can use that now.
They throw it back at you, basically.
Yeah. Same as manifestation. It's like, oh my God, I've seen that. I can do that. Manifestation.
Yeah, in it.
It's all fucking bullshit. But anyway, thank you for being on the podcast.
Mate, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. And also, like, yeah, it's sick that you're doing this. Like, there's not many people doing stuff about this. And I just think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I very much enjoyed speaking to you. If you want to find out more about Max, oh my God, wait, what is your handle on Instagram?
Max Selwood, just my name.
Oh yeah, it is just your name.
Yeah,
is it?
it's
Okay.
just my name.
If you want to find out more about Max, I will put his Instagram here. It is at Max Selwood on what? Instagram, TikTok, YouTube?
Instagram, TikTok. Nah, not really YouTube.
Okay.
Just Instagram and TikTok,
Instagram and TikTok. And if you would like to reach me, I'm at Kitty Cowell on all social media. And then I've also started at my Neurodivergent pod on Instagram. So you can hit me up there, follow me, and tell me who you'd like to see on the next podcast. Peace out.